I thought I sent you a link. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I checked. I have like 4 different emails. I checked them all. But,
you know what? Maybe I did habitually, because when I put up your name, the old one does still pop up, and then the SI one is under, and I probably hit the one on the top. That's probably what
I don't
happened.
have access to that one anymore.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And so that's probably why, because when you put, once I put the words Matt, it already comes up. You know what I mean? Because it's already there in the memory. So it's on me then. That was my fault.
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably what happened. I screwed up. Anyway, so you've done all the digging and all that stuff. So who's the number 1 pick tomorrow?
Bryce Young. Bryce Young is the number 1 pick tomorrow. So
is that the right pick by the Carolina Panthers? If Matt Verderame was the general mangler, because that's what you would be called.
I would be, yes.
You would be a mangler, not a manager. But if you were a general mangler of the Carolina Panthers, what would you select?
I would probably take Bryce Young, but I'd be nervous about it. I think he's the best quarterback in the class. Now, when I did my mock draft, I did it weeks ago, but I put Stroud because I thought size-wise, he might hold up a lot better. Then, a couple days after my mock, I was told by somebody who I trust about that S2 test, which had not become public yet. It became public about a week later. And knowing NFL front offices, I knew that was going to be a problem. And it's a problem. Now, how big of a problem? We're going to find out tomorrow night. I think it's Young for sure, number 1. Then it becomes, what does Houston do it to? Is it a quarterback? If it is a quarterback, is it Stroud? Is it Levis? I'll say this. If Houston doesn't pick a quarterback, I'll be surprised. I also think if you're picking a quarterback there, it better be Stroud. I'm sorry. Will Levis's tape is nowhere near CJ Stroud's tape. I don't care what his S2 cognitive score was. Like, we're picking guys based on football. CJ Stroud is a better player than Levis. And Richardson's just too raw, in my opinion, to take it.
Marino didn't score high on that.
It worked out okay.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, some guy, Neil something, that used to wear some shit on his nose and used to like sack a lot of people. Neil, Kansas City. What's his name? Smith?
Yeah.
Was it? I think so. He was pretty good, right? I think he scored like a 8 or something on the Wonderlic.
It worked out. Like, look.
Zach Thomas used to tell me all the time, I'm not a rocket scientist. Yeah, and if you had plenty of conversations with Zach, you kind of get that, all that kind. But he's actually really smart when it came to football. He actually was smart when it came to life and all that. But, he was kind of like a country dude, right? So he wasn't going to get into anything technical. But when it came to the football field,
boy,
he's an effing genius on the football field. Peyton Manning used to say that's the smartest player I ever faced was Zach Thomas. You know what I mean? Because Zach knew exactly what Peyton was going to do right away.
Yeah.
I love how we confuse football smarts with all kinds of other smarts. And that's what people just don't understand, because there's a lot of people that are really good at their jobs and because they understand what they're doing. And some of us would struggle at doing what they do. And yet we might be smarter than them. We might be more athletic than them or whatever it is. But they have a skill set that is special to what they do. And that's why, to me, the CJ Stroud thing is a little extreme. And then the Will Levis stuff starts to sound incredibly extreme now, like you're trying to sell right before the draft. You know what I'm saying?
I always tell a story when people talk about this stuff with like football IQ and cognitive and all this crap, which I think it's what it is, frankly.
Yes.
1981, the Giants drafted a guy named Lawrence Taylor. You might have heard of him. And took him 2nd overall.
Yep.
Saints, for the record, took a running back, George Rodgers, 1st. And so they're playing a game in St. Louis for the old football Cardinals. And Lawrence Taylor blitzes and sacks, I believe it was Neil Lomax, sacks the quarterback. Comes off the field. Bill Parcells, at this point, is not the head coach, he's the defensive coordinator. Says, what are you doing? He says, Lawrence, what do you mean? Why did you blitz? You're supposed to drop in a coverage. I'm sorry, I screwed up, whatever. Sorry, I didn't know. No. Next drive out there. Does the same thing, blitzes again. This time, forces a fumble. George Martin picks it up, runs it in for a touchdown. And he comes off the field, and Parcells is looking at him. He's like, I did it again, right? It's like, yeah, you did it again. He's like, we don't even have that play. And he's like, well, we ought to put it in tomorrow because it's a really good one. Like, the point is, some of these guys, they're just good at football. Like some of this stuff, just look. Mahomes and Kelsey, right now, current day example, they're maybe the best duo quarterback pass catcher in the NFL, or one of them, certainly. You talk to Travis Kelsey, and he'll be the first one to tell you a lot of the stuff they do is off the cuff. Like, it's even on the play sheet. They'll just, hey, look, I read it a certain way. I button hooked here. He read it the same way. A lot of times in the end, in the NFL, yes, a lot of it's pre-patterned, all that stuff. You got to know how to play football. And if you can do that, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yeah, man. Instincts are, to me, those tests or the Wonderlic or whatever you want to call them nowadays.
Yep.
To me, I always found those things overrated, only to one extent. Here's the only extent. You are giving a player a lot of money. They are representing your organization, your city. So you want to make sure that they have common sense, at least in that way. You don't want to make sure you are bringing some idiot, some thug, some guy that just is, just not, just a bad person. I think that, to me, that's where the common sense comes in. Okay, I want to see what kind of dude we are bringing in when he's away from our building, and that's the only concern that I would have with those kind of tests. That if it's a guy that has a really bad attitude and has a track record or an arrest history or whatever, then that's where these tests might come in. Like, hey, dude, we're going to give this guy $10 million, and all this guy can talk about is hoes and strip clubs and, wants to be, and so you got to watch out that, to me, that's the only time, is the maturity part of it. But is that going to determine what kind of a football player he's going to be? No, dude, because Lawrence Taylor showed up in practice in handcuffs once.
He's a great defensive player of all time.
Right. And they had to find a way to take off the handcuffs so he could go practice. And, that's just kind of the way it is. You might have some guys that are kind of screwed up, but on the field, they're going to be monsters for you. You know what I mean?
So in this case, nobody's doubting CJ Stroud's character. So if you think he's got great character and you think he can play football, then draft guy because he can play football.
Exactly.
Sometimes we make this way too complicated. Like, I remember there was when the 2017 class happened, the Bears were picking third. They traded up to second. They took Mitchell Trubisky. And one of the stories around Chicago has long been that Trubisky showed up for his official visit to the Bears. I forget the exact make and model of the car, but it was in his relative's car. It was an older car, kind of beat up. And the Bears looked at that and said, see, now that's a guy. He's a blue collar guy. He's down to earth. And that was one of the reasons they took him. You took him because of the car he showed up in? But that's also why everybody now that was with the Bears at that time is no longer with the Bears at that time. You just look at the tape. Look at the tape. Worry about your interview with him. If you believe in the player, if you believe in the person and you believe in the football player, take that football player.
Right.
That's it. Don't worry about all the rest of this stuff. None of it matters. It's overrated massively.
Exactly. To me, I see CJ Stroud as a guy that looks like he can do everything you need. And then the other thing is, looks like a good character kid. That's it. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. I'm fine. I'm all right with the rest. The rest you can figure it out. And so that's why I think there's this sell job both ways. One to kind of bring one guy down and the other one to bring the other guy up. And by the way, back in the day, there were, party and cocaine rumors with Marino and all that kind of stuff. And that's why he fell, because, they thought he was a party guy, this, that. Brother, you had Joe Namath in your league.
Let's not forget. What was it, a year before that? The Colts, a year or two. Art Schlichter was drafted.
Yeah, oh my God.
He was gambling on a payphone, from the stadium. I mean, it's there's
some bad checks.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're familiar with the NFL, if you've ever covered the NFL, there's stuff that happens in the NFL that is just beyond, like, stuff that could never get reported, that you just look at and go, oh my God, like, how does it happen? But happens. Like, stuff happens. So the idea that CJ Stroud's S2 cognitive test is some massive deal breaker is nuts. But when I found out about a week before that became public about that score, I said, this is going to be a problem, because you're just going to have teams that they freak out. They just do.
Right.
And and it is what it is.
Yeah, they're going to overreact on all of that. All right, your thoughts on the Rodgers move?
I thought the Packers did really well, to be honest with you. I graded it over at SI, and I gave the Packers an A- and the Jets a C+. Like, look, I get it. You got a great quarterback. You hope. He was not great last year. He's turning 40 this year. He's a huge upgrade. Nobody's arguing that. And he's the best quarterback they've had since Namath. Okay? That's the upside. The downside is their offensive line is not good. They are a team that, other than Garrett Wilson, I'm not in love with the weapons. I mean, Garrett Wilson's a very good player.
Breece Hall.
If he's healthy, yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, but I mean, he's a hell of a weapon.
When he's healthy, yeah, sure. But I'm more talking about the passing game. But yes, listen, I like the Jets as a playoff team. I do, and I get why the Jets did it. Like, I'm not here to pan the Jets. I get why the Jets did what they did. I just felt like giving up a first-round pick next year, assuming he's healthy, essentially. That's a lot. Like, when I talked to people around the league for months before this, it was always a second this year and then a conditional next year that might go from like a third to a second. That's different than going from a second to a first. So, and the Jets are eating all the money. That's a lot of money. And for people who are like, well, I don't care, it's Woody Johnson's money. Yeah, you're going to care when they can't sign a free agent the following year because he's tapped out budgetarily. Like, you are going to care. Yeah. So that's a lot. Well, now, I think the Packers did well. I think the Jets are a hell of a lot better. I think they're a playoff team in the AFC. I think they are going to fight with Buffalo and Miami. I think you can put any of them in any order you want to do it. But do I think they're a Super Bowl contender? No, I don't. I think they're a playoff team, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, they probably cornered them that either you give us an extra first rounder this year or a first rounder next year. And then that became that conditional second rounder that would become a first rounder, which he should play 65% of the snaps. Their receiving core doesn't necessarily scare me, but that's where he's going to have to be special to actually elevate that receiving core, right?
The question with him is, like, how bought in is he? Like, does he show up to OTAs? Is he there for minicamp? Is he dialed in? Or is this one of these things where they're 2-3 after 5 games and he's still trying to get assimilated to these receivers, like happened last year in Green Bay? For me, that's another part of this. Like, how invested. I never had to worry about that with Tom Brady. I knew Tom Brady was invested. I knew Tom Brady was going to show up and do the work. Is Aaron Rodgers invested? And if they start 1-2 and he doesn't like a question from the Daily News, what happens?
That's right.
I got to tell you, this isn't the Green Bay where 5 guys are credentialed and they've got to make sure they don't piss him off because they need access. They're going to take shots at him in New York for fun. I mean, that's going to be a sport. So how does he react to that? It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, he'll have 150 cameras in front of his ass every day. He's going to go, wow, this is night and day. That's what I'm looking forward to, not the battle for the Jets on the field, the battle of Aaron Rodgers and that media, and especially when things aren't going well.
That's the question.
He's never experienced this. And he's used to kind of being in control in a small town, like you mentioned. He's not in control now. That's going to be a whole different monster that he's going to take on. All right, what do you got going on SI so folks can check you out?
So right now, today, it went up, and I tweeted out a few times. It's on Sports Illustrated's web front page on the website. Did my first SI daily cover. It is on the 1983 NFL draft. There is a very fun story in there about Marino. There's a lot about Marino in general, but a very interesting story from Tony Dungy, who helped work him out when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1983. And he expresses his disappointment as to why they didn't take him and then playing him the following year in the AFC Championship game. So there's a lot of fun stories about him, about Elway, about the draft being on TV at the time. Go check it out. And then, my God, tomorrow I'll be in Kansas City, and we have enough draft stuff to take down a small village over the next couple of weeks. So follow me on Twitter, and you will not be disappointed in the amount of draft stuff we throw at you.
Elway was the first guy to say, no, I don't want to be drafted by you, right? I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
and
crazy
the
stuff.
Steelers could have drafted Dan Marino, their hometown kid, and passed on him. And Tony Dungy was not pleased. Let's put it that way.
They wanted to trade for him later on, and then
I
Shula
know.
turned it down during when Jimmy was going to take over. They could have traded him to Pittsburgh or
Yep.
Minnesota during that time, and Huizinga would have none of that. He wanted to keep Marino here. So in hindsight, it might have been better for him to go in his final 4 years here than stay here with Jimmy, who didn't really handle it right.
Yeah,
All
they
right,
didn't get along.
no. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Catch his work there at Sports Illustrated. Matt, as always, thank you, my brother. We'll catch
Hey,
up next
thanks a
week
lot.
after the draft.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. You got it. There you go, Matt Verderame, baby. He knows how to get it done. RedRecover.com. Go to RedRecover.com. If you own a doggy or two, large or small, sometimes they deal with those hip issues, and we've got the wraps to help them and alleviate that pain, that discomfort. Maybe it's a surgery, those kind of things. You're going to love it. They've got the hats to help you grow your hair. Go to redrecover.com. You won't see the hat right on the website. Go to contact us, send them an email, tell them that Big O's told you, and they will fill you in on the hat and use our code Big O so you can get 10% off on the doggy wraps there at redrecover.com. We step out of the huddle.